Hey guys, it's good to see you all. We know Eternia has always been about He-Man and Skeletor. But what if the real threat is an ancient evil hiding in plain sight? That's where King Hiss, the leader of the Snake Men, enters. He doesn't really crash through doors, you know? He pulls strings from the shadows. And the most fascinating part, he can shed his human disguise at any moment to reveal a writhing mass of snakes. He's been doing all of this ever since the earliest days of Eternia. Mattel created King Hiss to shake up the classic He-Man vs. Skeletor story. They wanted a threat that could operate in secret and keep everyone on their toes. The Snake Men are older than Castle Grayskull, but how did King Hiss's story change from vintage minicomics to the DC Comics series? And why does this matter? Because King Hiss isn't just part of Eternia's past, he's the reason the world has been in danger long before He-Man even showed up. Stay tuned with us on Lore Lockdown, because today we're diving into every origin, every scheme, and every terrifying rise of the Snake Men. So get ready to meet Eternia's darkest threat.
Rise so that all may cower before your fierce.
Core concept of King Hiss. Unlike the original He-Man toy line, which was launched in 1982, the action figure of King Hiss was later introduced in 1985. Needless to say, the character gained enormous popularity right upon its release, and was regarded as one of the most visually striking villains to be included in the Masters of the Universe line. The King Hiss action figure featured a rather unique gimmick where its human torso could be removed to expose a swirling mass of snakes underneath. No wonder this changing mechanism was highly praised, especially by children of the time, and they were absolutely enthralled. Despite it not appearing in the original Filmation cartoon, the character was particularly praised for its cool and menacing look, which blended perfectly with the high fantasy style of the line. Now, it's very important to know that King Hiss's defining trait across every continuity is deception. He looks human. He even acts like an ally, but the minute his human disguise comes off, you know you've been tricked well. After all, we're looking at a villain who has managed to fool even He-Man for that matter. And to think that King Hiss's primary power is disguise and not brute force or sorcery makes him absolutely terrifying. Mind you, this supreme ruler of the humanoid snake warriors, or the Snake Men to be more precise, predates the current era of Eternia, and he is said to have also fought against King Grayskull himself, but he was locked away within a dimensional void sealed inside Snake Mountain. While there's no denying that the Snake Mountain is the primary base of operations of the notorious villain who has a skull for a face and possesses a staff crackling with dark energy, it was originally the sacred stronghold of King Hiss and the Snake Men. Well, I'm going to be spilling a lot of interesting facts in this video, so if you want to take notes, I suggest you get a pad and pen right away. King Hiss's first appearance in the 1986 minicomic Explored. Can I be honest here? Even a passionate fan like me tends to forget at times that the key objective of Steve Grant and Bruce Timm's minicomic King of the Snake Men was to introduce, establish, and promote the King Hiss action figure and the new Snake Men faction within the toy line. The comic, which was packaged with the figures of King Hiss, Tongue Lasher, and Ratlore, illustrated the transformation feature of the toy, showing King Hiss in his human disguise before revealing his true snake form. Truth be told, the comic functions more as a crisp origin by action story that has Skeletor unleashing the legendary leader of the Snake Men by energizing a power pool which he had discovered further within the caverns of Snake Mountain. After King Hiss emerges, he quickly exhibits his deceitful nature by placing his handsome, heroic-looking human self in front of He-Man, and the latter believing the former to be a man in danger makes the grave mistake of attempting to save him. With King Hiss's deliberate disguise coming off, he reveals his real form, an upper body comprised of 5 intertwined serpents. Using his evil gaze, King Hiss is effortlessly able to hypnotize the virtually indestructible He-Man, and it's safe to admit he doesn't waste any time marking his formidable presence. In fact, he makes his big plans of universal domination crystal clear. Additionally, the minicomic does a fantastic job in giving its readers a peek into King Hiss's ancient past. Having conquered several planets in the universe, King Hiss and his army of repulsive reptiles had an iron grip on the galaxies. With him arriving on Eternia, he took Snake Mountain for his throne, and the goal was to subjugate Eternia like every other planet. Although King Hiss and his Snake Men did fight a long war to take over all of Eternia, They were ultimately defeated by the combined powers of the Council of Elders, who imprisoned him and his followers within a timeless dimension. So when Skeletor finally freed him from centuries of captivity, King Hiss's top priority was to release his men from the same dimensional prison. While there's no denying that King Hiss tries to bring back his entire army, he only succeeds in summoning 2 of them, Ratlore and Tongue Lasher. Now, I really like how the minicomics has realigned these 2 characters, because if you remember, we have mentioned in previous videos that they were already seen in the She-Ra Princess of Power cartoon as members of the Evil Horde. But since the character of King Hiss wasn't created back then, the 1986 minicomic cleverly bridges the gap by making the henchmen serve King Hiss's old enemy Hordak, especially during his banishment. If you want my honest opinion, I think King of the Snake Men is quite essential for introducing King Hiss and immediately integrating him as a fresh and decidedly dangerous threat in the Masters of the Universe lore. Exploring the later vintage minicomics, Three Towers era, 1986 to 1987. Well, it's certainly no secret that the King Hiss storyline developed over a number of follow-up minicomics, in which the character is seen evolving from a recently released prisoner to the architect of Eternia's ancient past. While I'm going to take a look at each of them, please bear in mind that there is a lot going on in the comics, so my main emphasis will be on King Hiss. I still remember reading the minicomic titled The Ultimate Battleground with so much excitement. After all, the comic was packaged specifically with the massive Eternia playset, and I don't know about you, but I could barely keep my excitement in check. As for the story, this is the comic that has King Hiss joining forces with Skeletor and using their combined powers to raise the 3 towers of Eternia, Grayskull Tower, Central Tower, and Viper Tower, from the ground. Of course, it's interesting to note that the ancients had sunk the 3 towers that represented the ultimate power many years ago, so as to prevent them from falling into the hands of their greatest enemy, otherwise known as King Hiss. Anyway, post the raising of the 3 legendary towers, King Hiss specifically takes control of the Viper Tower, for obvious reasons, and it's in revenge of the Snake Men he merges his mystical skills with the evil powers of the tower to summon more of his Serpent Warriors from the void. While the readers are introduced to Snakeface and Squeeze, King Hiss remains determined to conquer Eternia at all costs through this minicomic. Next, the character is seen in Energy Zoids, where, truth be told, he acts more as an ally to Skeletor, supporting him in his scheme to build an army of robots resorting to Man-at-Arms' gyro machine and battling against Hordak's Horde troopers. But it's in The Powers of Grayskull the legend begins, where King Hiss is featured in a wider storyline set in the pre-Eternia era. With King Hiss leading his vicious army and hellbent on destroying the Elders, the readers get to witness the sheer scale of the Snake Men's original conquest. To top things further, the leader of the Snake Men is also seen riding the Tyrannosaurus Rex, or should I say, the most terrifying dinosaur in Preternia. In my opinion, this minicomic clearly establishes King Hiss as an ancient evil whose history with Castle Grayskull and its original predecessors goes back centuries. Furthermore, this may come as a surprise, but this particular minicomic was also the first of an intended 3-part minicomic series, which had big plans of introducing He-Ra, the most powerful wizard in the universe, fighting King Hiss in the Preternia era. However, with the toy line getting canceled before the minicomics could hit the shelves, the Preternia backstory was left untold in vintage form. Exploring King Hiss at his best in the 2002 MYP animated series.
I, King Hiss, the true ruler of Eternia, have reclaimed...
I think a majority of fans will agree that this version of King Hiss has the strongest franchise backstory. There's a reason that in the 2002 continuity, King Hiss serves as the primary antagonist, going to the very extent of replacing Skeletor as the central threat. So much so, the second season of the MYP animated television series was also titled as the Masters of the Universe versus the Snake Men. I think it's fitting to state that King Hiss truly made a grand entrance in animation, looking unquestionably menacing. While I have thoroughly enjoyed every episode that features King Hiss, my favorite is the 2-parter episode titled Rise of the Snake Men. Part 1 introduces King Hiss in full glory, right after Cobra Khan and Ratlore frees him from the void. I love how he simply wastes no time in asserting his power, especially over Skeletor. It makes it blatantly obvious who's in charge. Also, if I may add, King Hiss's true serpent form categorically looks way scarier here. The way he sheds his human skin to reveal a ghastly multi-headed snake form is quite unsettling, and I don't know why, but something about his 5 serpent heads, each capable of striking independently and communicating at the same time with a single unified voice, that instantly positions him as an ancient top-tier threat. For instance, Part 1 features a disturbing flashback sequence where King Hiss, in his frightful snake form, is seen eating alive Zodak's brother Zelar. Trust me when I say this is not a pleasant sight at all. In fact, this whole act of devouring the powerful Eternian's brother, who himself was an ambassador to the Council of Elders, created the series' most compelling rivalry. And I wouldn't be entirely wrong to say that the conflict between Zodak and Hiss, which is explored throughout the season, elevates King Hiss from a mere second season villain to the central figure of a centuries-spanning tragedy. Don't worry, I will be touching on this as well, but coming back to part 1, it certainly spices things up a bit when King Hiss coerces Skeletor to bow down before him while addressing him as the new king. And if you thought, it certainly spices things up when King Hiss coerces Skeletor to bow down to him while addressing himself as the new king. And if you thought he left it at that, that is obviously not true. King Hiss summons a giant snake that pretty much swallows Skeletor, and it's also safe to acknowledge that he reclaims the Snake Mountain after that, as the final scene of part 1 shows Snake Mountain growing 2 more serpent heads. In part 2 of the two-parter, it's revealed that King Hiss wields magic that is as ancient as that of the Elders, and even the sorceress is not enough to stop him. He's also seen resorting to a magical serpent staff in his human form in order to channel his dark magic and cast spells. King Hiss's goal continues to remain the same, seeking the greatest power of all of Eternia, and ruling with such power till the end of time. No wonder the power-hungry King Hiss spared Evil Lynn's life and decided not to eat her because of her knowledge of the power of the Elders. Part 2 is also jam-packed with exciting battles, of which 2 fight scenes certainly deserve a mention here. While the first happens to be the fierce magical duel between Hiss and the sorceress, it's the second face-off between Hiss and his old enemy Zodak that had me completely hooked. No points for guessing that Zodak emerges as the victor, and his centuries-old grudge against King Hiss is visibly evident as he ends up hurling his enemy's body into the abyss underneath Castle Grayskull. Now, to every fan that was thinking this was the end of King Hiss in the animated series, let me put your minds to rest. Of course he survives. Don't tell me you forgot we're dealing with a primordial threat, one who distinctively happens to be the leader of an ancient race that has existed long before the current era of Eternia. King Hiss appears next in Second Skin, where he manages to lay his hands on the Serpent Ring, or should I say, an artifact of unspeakable power. With him acquiring the magical ring, which was buried deep within the Sea of Rakash, and later locating the massive Ophidian spire in the Evergreen Forest, the plan was to transform every other living being into snake. In fact, in the episode, he's seen going to quite an extent to use the ring as a weapon of mass conversion against all Eternia, and even if it was for a brief period of time, he is successfully able to transform Man-at-Arms, Tila, and Mechanic. Also, another interesting thing that I came across in this episode is King Hiss's protective nature towards his forces. Well, there is a scene in the episode where Cobra Khan takes a hit for King Hiss. The latter's eyes are seen glowing with rage. I firmly believed this is not an act of weakness. It is a genuine protective fury. You see, unlike Skeletor, who absolutely enjoyed humiliating his evil warriors, King Hiss truly loved his snake men, often holding them in high regard and showering them with praise. Well, after failing to use the Serpent's Ring to conquer Eternia, King Hiss's next plan of action was to release Serpos, the ancient snake god. As seen in the episode Rattle of the Snake, the Temple of Serpos was of extreme importance to the Snake Men, and they had built it thousands of years ago, dedicating their temple to their god. After the initial defeat of King Hiss, the temple was forgotten to the world until its release from the void. In the aforementioned episode, King Hiss is seen seeking a way to become the supreme ruler of Eternia once again. This has him traveling to the realm of Subternia to locate the temple and acquire the Medallion of Serpos in order to summon the ancient deity. But despite King Hiss being literally on the cusp of his greatest triumph, he halts his plans of awakening Serpos after learning that Evil Lyn is plotting to free his biggest threat, one that goes by the name of Hordak, from the dark dimension of Despondent. Honestly speaking, it's been nothing but sheer delight to be able to witness King Hiss's character arc getting explored across multiple continuities. So, for someone who is ancient beyond reckoning, isn't afraid of anyone, and actually commands gods, finding him genuinely scared of Hordak is certainly an intriguing aspect of King Hiss's character. So much so that in the episode History, King Hiss drops everything to prevent Hordak's return. Ultimately, in the series finale, King Hiss is seen resorting to the Medallion of Serpos to transform Snake Mountain into its true form, or in other words, the three-headed Serpos. In fact, when the stone serpent coiled around Snake Mountain, it comes to life in the episode Awaken the Serpent. The transformation is hands down one of the most dramatic reveals in the entire franchise history, for that matter. I think it's only fitting to state that Snake Mountain has always been an integral piece of King Hiss's history, and this final episode here makes the most of it. Of course, King Hiss is seen at his peak here, and I'm not kidding you at all when I say he's even seen riding on Serpos and making his way towards Castle Grayskull. Well, all thanks to Serpo that he nearly manages to crash the symbol of Eternian power and renders almost every defender defeated, but he's intercepted by the timely arrival of Zodak, who engages with him in a fight once again. With King Hiss transforming into his snake form, it momentarily looks like he's gained the upper hand. But Zodak has been planning this confrontation for quite a while now. Much to the surprise of King Hiss, Zodak uses his inner power, or mental abilities, to be more precise, in order to take control of Hiss's serpent heads, and strategically causes the side heads to turn on the central head and devour. In my opinion, King Hiss truly gets an aptly mythological ending, one that's quite visceral. As for Serpos, you can't be serious to think that he isn't defeated. Of course, the Snake God is crushed by the combined forces of He-Mite, the Sorceress, and the Elders, and restored to its stone form on Snake Mountain. How did the MOTU Classics toy line bio explore the origin of King Hiss? I don't know who all can remember this, but in the year 2011, the MOTU Classics line released a King Hiss figure, which included the most comprehensive single document origin that I at least have ever seen. Mark my words when I say it is a toy line bio, so please do not mistake this for a comic. Also, the origin appeared on the back of the action figures package, so it wasn't really that hard to miss. Anyway, I'll get straight to the origin. Way before he was called King Hiss, his real name was Hiss of the Viper House. Hiss served himself as a servant of the mysterious entity known as the Unnamed One, and was chosen to lead an army of snake men to the planet of Eternia. The goal remained the same, plundering Eternia's magical secrets. Hiss ended up ruling Eternia for 3 centuries until a rebellion formed under Divan Grayskull. Eventually, with the invasion of the Horde, Hiss was drawn to a 3-way war, and in due course, all 3 sides agreed to a temporary truce in order to construct the 3 towers. However, Hiss was betrayed by Hordak and banished to the void by the Elders and Zodak. For 5,000 years, Hiss and his army of snake men waited until Evelyn and Cobra Khan opened the snake pit to freedom.
My temple, your tomb!
Exploring King Hiss in the DC Comics run. When DC Comics relaunched the Masters of the Universe line in 2012, the character of King Hiss primarily appeared in the 2nd volume, specifically in the story arc titled What Lies Within. Now, believe me when I tell you this version of King Hiss has a significantly different take on the character, and while his most dangerous weapon continues to be his human disguise, he certainly takes things up quite a notch when he impersonates as King Randor, and that too for an extended period of time in the DC comic. Hiding in plain sight and striking when least expected, this is exactly how King Hiss's character is in the comics, and it's quite difficult to come to terms with the fact that he ended up fooling He-Man, Teela, Stratos, Battlecat, and even Mossman. Story-wise, He-Man and his allies are seen journeying through the dark subterranean realm of the dead on the advice of King Randor. The group is on a quest to bring back the dead sorceress, and all seems to be well in the beginning. But when King Randor deliberately crashes their airship into the ground, He-Man tries to help out his father, only to realize it's King Hiss within his father's body. Many fans have addressed this particular reveal as one of the most unsettling utilizations of King Hiss's ability to conceal himself. So much so, Hiss's terrifying form even has He-Man at a loss for words. King Hiss reminds He-Man that his father was just a mask and taunts him by saying that he'll never know how long he has occupied his father's flesh. Of course, this is hard to accept on the part of He-Man, as he immediately engages in a fight against King Hiss. But in the realm of the dead, King Hiss is highly powerful, and he has all the more power over his snake men. With the dead snake men beginning to arise from their icy graves, they start attacking He-Man's allies. King Hiss makes it clear that He-Man is going to be the ultimate sacrifice, which will enable the resurrection of the reawakened snake men as the dominant race on Eternia. When King Hiss commands his snake men to carry He-Man and throw him into the Starseed for the sacrifice, timely intervention and sacrifice of Teela stop He-Man from being sacrificed. Moreover, with Teela falling into the Starseed, the spirit of her dead mother grants her the power of the sorceress, and she emerges from the Starseed as the sorceress of Serpos. While King Hiss doesn't accept the goddess, his snake men start to bow down, and within an instant he loses control of them. Believing he is capable of destroying the goddess, King Hiss tries to strike her, but He-Man punches him into the abyss. It's at this point that most readers believe they've finally seen the last of King Hiss. But, as per the ending of the comics, King Hiss is clearly not done with business. Posing as an old woman on Eteria, King Hiss warns Adora to look out for what the future may hold. Now, if someone were to ask me to define King Hiss in my own words, I'd fittingly describe him as a green pit viper in the grass. He truly bothers me, but not because of his strength or appearance. I find him genuinely disturbing because of how patient he is. This guy was sealed away for thousands of years, and the first thing he did right after he got out was to pick up right where he left off. You see, King Hiss is a villain who is motivated by determination. He's ruled Eternia before, he's determined to rule again. And that's the most terrorizing thing about King Hiss. I hate to admit it, but this is all I have for today, and we've reached the end of the video. I would love to know which continuity, according to you, has his best origin. You think it's the 1986 minicomic, the 2002 MYP series, the MOTU Classic storyline bio, or the DC Comics run? I personally happen to be a fan of the 2002 series. Also, in case I've forgotten to mention this before, the character of King Hiss also made an appearance, primarily via flashbacks, in the Netflix animated TV series titled He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So if any of you have seen that, do let me know. If you've enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell icon for more videos. As for me, I promise to come back with another favorite video soon. Thanks for watching and have a nice one.